My stepson absolutely hates me. So I went away to a business trip and I find out my BMW was ruined. Well, come to find out it was my stepson who did it, but the secret is, well, it's not my BMW anymore, cause I sold it to his father. Now, he's so scared because I'm deciding whether I should tell on him or not. Let me tell you a couple more details.
Karma is a psycho, a real one, you know. This is about my stepson Daniel, who has been my pain in the butt ever since I married his father David 2 years ago. He hates my guts. He blamed me for wrecking his family, and his father separated from his mother when Daniel was a mere 9 years of age, which was like 10 years ago. I met David 5 years ago and have been married for 2 years, yet I'm the home wrecker for Daniel. When I started going out with David, he told me that his wife abandoned him and his 9-year-old son on one fateful day without giving any reason. He suspected she had an affair with the mechanic at the nearby garage, who, by the way, was also never seen after that day, so we're guessing that she fled with him to another state. Since then, she has never contacted him or his son. Before I met Daniel, I used to wonder how he could hate me so much without even meeting me or knowing about me. David used to say that after his mother abandoned him, Daniel had turned very violent and aggressive. When I shifted to David's house, Daniel was in his final year, and he was one of those really tough dudes who bullied and beat up the other kids in the school. He was so mannerless that he did not even smile at me or greet me when he first saw me. He did not attend the wedding because he hated me so much. Initially, I did not take his misbehavior seriously. At a young age, his mother abruptly abandoned him as a teenager, and I tried to be empathetic toward him, but he was just not willing to melt. I tried my best to befriend him, cook for him, ask him out on dinners and clubs, but he always ignored me as if I did not exist for him. I even went to his soccer matches, but he used to walk past me. Once I served food on his plate and he threw away the plate and said I was not his mother and I should not try to be one. David was in the living room and he heard the commotion and rushed to the dining table. He yelled at Daniel. It led to a huge argument between them, and I tried to pacify David, but Daniel kept saying that his mom fled because David used to beat her up. Well, I asked David if this is true. He said it happened just once when he found out that the mechanic in the house in his absence was doing something, yeah. So they were not doing anything, but she failed to explain what he was doing at his house. David admitted that it was his mistake to raise his hand on his ex-wife and regrets it deeply. Unfortunately, Daniel saw him hitting his mother, and hence he blamed him when his mother fled. Daniel said that it's not just one time. His mother used to cry with pain during the night. David justifies that she was an emotionally weak woman and used to burst into tears after every argument. Hence, Daniel thought that she was being beaten up regularly. I don't know how much of whose version is true, but David has never been aggressive to me in the last 5 years of knowing him. Yes, he has anger issues, and he locks himself up to cool down. So I really don't know which side is true, guys. I'm just concerned about my growing bitterness towards Daniel. I know I should be the big person, being an adult. He's just a teenager, but truth be told, I've also started to hate him. Earlier, I used to be empathetic towards him. Now, I've also started hating him because of his wickedness towards me. Whenever my friends or relatives visit me, Daniel plays his music so loudly that it becomes unbearable to sit and talk in the living room. If this was not enough, he occupied the living room couch to play his video games at full volume. It became so severe that I had to take my guest to my bedroom. It has become so embarrassing for me. I think he just wants to make the statement that I need to have my guest in my room, or that I should not entertain them at all. Usually, I don't complain to David about his son's monstrous behavior, but a week ago I fell sick. After resting in my room for the whole day, I was feeling bored, so I laid down in the living room. Daniel saw me there, and as usual, he began his usual tantrums. He started playing some random loud games on the television and was cussing at the top of his voice. Though he has a PS in his room, he does this intentionally to disturb me. I was about to get up and go back to my room when David called me to check how I was doing, so I took the call, and he heard Daniel cussing and playing his game very loudly in the background. He asked me if I was with him. I said yes. He said that he's on his way home and had called me to check if I needed anything. He told me to stay in the living room until he was at home. He was just 10 minutes away. I told him it's not necessary, but he insisted. I don't know if Daniel heard me or not because he had his earphones on. When David entered the house, he saw Daniel cursing and yelling while playing his video games. So he asked him why he was not playing in his room. He said it's his house and he could do whatever he wanted. David was still polite to him and said that I was unwell and he could be a little considerate towards me. Well, Daniel lost his mind and started shouting at David, saying I was all sorts of names and who was instigating David against him. David punched him square in the face when he abused me, and I rushed to stop David before he gave another blow to Daniel. But that jerk abused me again and shouted at me to stay away from them. He kept calling me a witch and all sorts of names. David gave him a few more punches before I pulled him away, and Daniel stormed out of the house and said that he would never ever come back. He went to my in-laws' place and just complained about me. The next day, my father-in-law called David to his home, without me. They suggested that Daniel be put into the college dorm, because his aggression and hatred were killing him from the inside. It was not safe and healthy for any of us to stay together. David agreed to pay for his college dorm, though his college was 30 minutes away from the house. 2 days later, he came back home with my in-laws to pack his stuff up, and my in-laws did not tell me anything. They usually don't interfere in our affairs, but I was feeling guilty about the whole situation. I know that boy has been a bully to me for the last 2 years, but it was still his home, and he had to leave it. While leaving the house, I heard him saying that he would never come to the house and that he would take his and his mother's revenge. He blamed me for everything and swore to destroy me. The thing is, everybody has made it taboo around stepmother that we're all the evil ones. Even before knowing the entire story, and I'm being labeled as, well, a jerk. I usually don't give a darn about what others think of me, but sometimes it does affect us. Sometimes I also get into my guilt trip that I should not have taken the call from the living room when Daniel was around. I can't admit this to anybody, but I think deep down I also wanted David to know how Daniel bullied me. But I never wanted him to leave the house. I never imagined that the situation would get so bad that Daniel would get so aggressive and abuse me in front of David. Well, after he left, David was also upset. He's mostly quiet and keeps to himself, and I confronted him to see if he thought that I was the reason for all of this. He said he did not blame me. He blames himself for Daniel's poor upbringing. But whatever I've seen in the last 2 years, David has been a good father to Daniel, taking care of all his needs and showing up for all important occasions like his soccer games, annual days, etc. And I just don't know what else he should have done to be a better father. Of course, he tried to form a bond with Daniel. He tried to speak to him, but as a normal teenager, Daniel never really had any conversation with his father. I don't know how to deal with this situation. I can only support David because it's tough for him to have his son live in the dorm when the house is so near the college. I'm not here for any suggestions or advice because I don't think there's anything I could do to reverse or improve the situation. I was just heavy-hearted and on a guilt trip, hence pouring it all out in front of random strangers. Thanks for reading. Update number 1. Guys, I just need to update. Thank you for all the virtual hugs and comments and love. It means a lot, trust me. I never intended to make an update or have a thread around this, but seeing the comments in the post and people asking if anything had happened further, here I am. Also, there were a lot of people commenting that I should have never married a single father, and asked how I married a man with a child, and that too with such an age difference. You see, the thing is, I never really saw that as a problem, neither age nor that he was a single dad. I met David at an event, and we were both there to pitch our business idea to an investor. None of us got the funding from the event, but we both ended up talking after the event. He approached me, appreciating my business idea, and I told him the same. I was in the digital marketing space looking for funding to expand my business to Asia and Africa, while he was building a SaaS startup. He humorously said that we should combine both of our companies and just run it together. Well, I said yes, why not? He was not expecting me to say yes instantly, but I saw merit in merging them. That's how we got started. In regards to his abusive nature, well, I've already mentioned that I've never saw him violent. Having anger issues and being abusive are totally different, let's admit it. Who does not have anger issues? We all do. It's just how we deal with it. And for David, I see him dealing with it quite well. Yeah, when he gets triggered, like the incident with Daniel, it becomes difficult for him to keep in check, but he is not abusive. A week after he moved out, David went to meet Daniel, but he refused to meet with him. He does not pick up David's calls, but he used to visit his grandparents. See, David was happy that Daniel was at least visiting his grandparents often, and a few days ago, I bumped into David's cousin at a shopping mall. She said that she heard Daniel had moved out, and I said yes, he's living in his college dorm. I got to know from her that it was Daniel who was bad-mouthing me in front of all the relatives. He was spreading rumors that I had kicked him out of the house and had been manipulating his father. Not only this, he told everybody that I was abusive towards him and tortured him, as if, well, when he were a toddler. He went as far as saying that David and I used to tie him up and hit him, even for a small mistake or a small drop in his academics. It was so shocking because neither David nor I ever talked about his grades, or forgot about punishing him. Of course, his statements led to a lot of gossip in David's family that it was I who, quote, kicked Daniel out of the home. I was labeled with all sorts of names, but no one told me anything to my face. I have not told David about this yet because it's going to disturb his mental health. I've distanced myself from all those negative relatives and have not let them affect me. I focus more on my work and my relationship with David. I just feel so bad for all stepmothers who have made the villain without their fault. I want to say not all stepmoms are bad. Some of them are victims, just like me. Update number 2. Guys, I have a hilarious update. So last month it was my parents' 50th anniversary, so I went on a family trip to Florida. It was just our family, my parents, my older brother, my sister, and me, with no spouses. I was having a great time with my family when I get a text from an unknown number. A picture of my BMW car was attached with the text that said, found your BMW, and I'm going to destroy it. I panicked, like naturally. I tried to find out who was sending the text message to me. My first suspicion went for Daniel, but he had blocked me. I immediately called David to check for the car, but he did not pick up my call. He sent an automated message saying that he was busy in a meeting, and I forwarded him the text I received and the voicemail asking him to look for the car. My messages were still unread by David after 10 minutes. I got another text from that unknown number. This time it was a picture of the vandalized BMW. The glass was lying in pieces, the windshield was gone, the seats were broken, and the body of the car was covered in scratches beyond recognition. I was in panic mode before receiving the text, but after seeing the car dismantled like that, it was too late to say that the damage was done. I looked up the number online and found it belonged to somebody named Harris. Harris, he was Daniel's friend and used to come to our house often. I was sure that it was them or somebody else who would have done this. Why would anybody else damage my car and then send me the photos? So I replied to the text, "That car belongs to your father, David. I sold it to him months ago. Please send the pictures to him." With an emotion, right? I was immediately blocked by that person, and those messages were also deleted, but I'd already saved the photo and sent the screenshots to the chat to David. I was not bluffing. I actually sold my BMW to David a few months ago. David wanted to upgrade his Ford to a BMW or Mercedes, but his budget was tight, and I'd already driven that BMW for 4 years, so I was thinking of changing it, so I sold it to him at a discount. This happened after Daniel had moved out of the house, and he did not know that it belonged to David now. He thought that I was out for my trip, and my car was just parked outside our home. The poor guy had no idea that he was signing up for this. He thought if he sent the messages from his friend's phone, we would not be able to catch him. What an idiot. After about 30 minutes or so, David called me back after seeing my messages. He has also looked up the number and found it to be Harris. He knew him and understood that Daniel was behind all of this. I asked him where he was, and he said that he's given the car for servicing, and it was supposed to be delivered to the house. He went home to find the car vandalized beyond identification. David has lost his cool because that was his only vehicle. He rushed to Daniel's hostel to look for him. The warden told Daniel he was out with some buddies, and David knew their common hangout spot. It was a little quaint cafe at the corner of our street. There he was. David dragged him out of the cafe by his neck and beat him up. His friend Harris and a few others tried to intervene, but, well, David backed off when he saw David's raging eyes. David then went to Harris's house, who lived 2 blocks away from ours, and showed his parents the messages that he sent me. Though it was Daniel who did this, Harris supported him. His parents were mad at him and warned him to stay far away from Daniel. His parents also revealed shocking news to David. A few months ago, they caught Daniel bringing drugs to their house, and both of them, Daniel and Harris, indulged in it. Harris's mother caught them in the act and rebuked them. They threatened to inform David about this, but Daniel pleaded with them not to inform David. He cried and he begged that if David got to know about any drugs, he would kill him. He also lied that David used to regularly beat him up, hence he did drugs to overcome the pain. After knowing this, it made sense why Daniel was always so animated and aggressive. He was on drugs. David is so distraught after knowing all of this. He was so upset that he broke down over the phone. He had done his best to take care of Daniel after his mother abandoned him. Yet Daniel hated him and badmouthed him. I felt so bad for him, and I was also so far from time to console him. As a parent, it's so humiliating when your child talks evilly about you every time you've done so much for them. David said he did not get remarried or date anybody immediately after his ex-wife left him because he cared for his son. Daniel was already very disturbed by his mother abandoning them, and in that situation, if David had remarried immediately, it would have disturbed him even more. So he waited for 5 years until Daniel was an adult to understand these things. Yet he never understood his father. He always cared for his mother, who had abandoned him. Even if Daniel's version of the story is true and she fled to escape David's abuse, she should have contacted her son. If not directly, then through other means. And Daniel also visited his mother's parents, but they never mentioned that his mother contacted them and asked about Daniel. I told David that he should have taken Daniel to therapy because he's still not able to make peace with the fact that his mother has left him. He blames everybody else for his mother's mistake, and he agreed to my suggestion and told me that he would involve my in-laws to take Daniel for therapy. Daniel only listens to them and nobody else. Well, I shortened my trip and came back home 2 days early. David was absolutely devastated by the incident. More than the car, he was upset with the hatred and anger that Daniel had for him and for me. I'm trying to cheer him up and talk him out of this depressive state that he's in. I've also discussed this with the insurance company, But I'm worried about the policy when the car's damaged by immediate family members. There are instances where people get their cars vandalized by their own family members to claim the insurance money, but now the company has become strict with these policies. I'm not very sure how they've investigated the accident and arrived at a decision. Anybody having any idea about this is most welcome to share. Please, go ahead and DM me. I'm looking for general advice on tackling Daniel's issues as well. I know this problem is not really unique to me. Most stepmoms who want to bond with their stepkids face this problem. Anybody who's able to crack this problem, please share your details and tips. Update number 3. Hey guys, thank you for all the kind suggestions. A lot of stepmothers showed up at my post and commented that they could relate to my problems. I know, girls. We're just not appreciated enough. We try our best to love and raise other people's kids, and sometimes we delay having our own children so that his kids don't get less priority. We're just tagged as evil and homewreckers, when most of us were not even there in the picture during the said homewrecking. Anyways, coming back to Daniel's case, my in-laws convinced him to go to therapy. In fact, they used to accompany him on the visits. In the 4th or 5th session, some shocking information was revealed. Of course, this is very, very confidential. I will not go into details and will try to summarize it. The therapist had to inform David about this because Daniel's case was slightly critical. Not only was Daniel depressed that his mother had left him, but he was also delusional, and his condition was worsening with time. He, in fact, knew that his mother was bringing other men into the house, but she had manipulated him against David. She told him that his father was a cruel man and beat her up every night, and that's why she cried all day. She told him that she needed a friend to talk to, hence she called those men home. Daniel never informed David about the presence of other men because he believed his mother's story. In fact, while crying, his mother usually used to say, "I'll run away from this house if your father beats me like this." All these are fitted inside Daniel so badly that he even refuses to see reality through his own eyes. Those days, David used to be super busy setting up his business. He barely had time for his family. His ex-wife used that opportunity so cunningly to turn his son against him. I was so shocked to hear all of this. Now I feel bad for the poor boy. His mother has actually ruined his life. Until now, David used to blame himself for not being able to raise Daniel properly, but in actuality, it was his mother who had turned his mind so evil. David says that she intentionally turned Daniel against him to make David suffer for his whole life. Though I do not know his ex-wife, my in-laws say that it's unbelievable that she was so evil. She planted her revenge by manipulating Daniel. What a shrewd woman she is! Daniel's still undergoing a lot of therapy. I hope he comes out healed and strong. David is broken down after hearing the truth, and I'm doing my best to support and love him during his bad phase. I hope the family recovers and bounces back to normal ASAP. There's one more secret I want to share with this group. We're planning for a baby soon. I hope this news brings a bit of joy to David, who had been so distraught after the truth coming out. Anyways, thanks for reading. I'll update the thread if anything progresses.
So, at the end of the story, we find out OP is planning to have a baby with her significant other, and her stepson is in therapy, bettering himself to understand the issues that he faced when he was growing up with his biological mother. So guys, I just really have a few questions. Question number 1, what do you guys think of the story and how OP handled it? Question number 2, if you were in OP's position, how would you have done it differently? Let me know your thoughts down below in our comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories every single day that have something to do with a dramatic twist. So guys, if you want daily videos, go ahead, drop a subscribe button down below. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.